You ready? Good. Welcome to the show. My name is Son, and here we go. For those of you who don't know, Politically Speaking has evolved into a competition of sorts. Every young person who comes up to this mic is a superstar. Everyone who comes up to the mic is a winner because it's not easy to get up here and represent like that. Y'all feel me? Yeah. Feel me? Right?
When will the time come when we can tweet about our successes and our downfalls?
From the stress that us teen girls face to even the accomplishment of winning a track race.
We should be the ones getting noticed, not the celebrities who get followed just because of their fans.
Because last time I checked, beating your life was lame.
Before I came to Teen Voices, I worked for the education department for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. There was this box of magazines that would get delivered every couple of months that would always hang out around the front desk of the club. And so the nosy program coordinator at the time, I went over and I was like, what are these magazines? And so I opened the box one day and it was a box full of Teen Voices magazines. So as I was flipping through and I realized all the great content that was in it and all the stuff that I could use for the discussions and stuff like that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing. And so when the funding for the position that I was in at the Boys and Girls Club ran out, miraculously, there was an opening for the program director position at Teen Voices. And so I applied, and the rest is history.
We work with girls to become stronger writers and stronger articulators of their opinions about the things that matter to them. And we're also helping girls all around the world get access to kind of information that they just don't get in mainstream media.
They are journalists when they leave this program, and they have proof in that there's an article, either in print or online, that they've created, worked in a small group to create. I want them to feel very proud of that. I want them to feel very accomplished. I want them to feel like they've made a difference. I want them to feel confident. I want them to feel like they can do anything. Because if you can, at 16 years old, create an article for an internationally distributed teen magazine, yeah, you can kind of do anything. You're kind of a superstar, and that's how I want them to feel. That's what I want them to know, because again, if they carry that on with them, that feeling that I can accomplish anything, that I can do anything, then it really becomes true, and there's nothing they can't do.
You get to know them when they have come into the program in their first, second year, and by the time they're peer leaders, a few of them a couple of years or so, the self-confidence, the ability to speak in public, the ability to hold attention is so gratifying to observe.
It may be true that we don't realize something good until we lose it, but it's also true that we don't know what we've been missing until it arrives. It wasn't quite that often that I get a chance to laugh, but with her, the pain will fade, it never lasts. Because
the teachers don't really acknowledge the girls, like they don't say, oh, good job on your last math test, because she consecutively gets good grades on her math test. But like when a boy does, it's like a huge thing, and like the teachers, like, I don't know, especially because I have a lot of male teachers and there's a lot of male teachers in my school, I feel like they focus on the boys more than the girls, really.
But with my English teacher, he's just always looking at the corner of the boys. Not even because they're talking, but because, they're boys. He feels as though they should answer the questions rather than the girls. It makes me feel, really stupid. Because I sit in the middle, right in the middle of all the tables, and then, I'll be raising my hand, and he'll just walk right on by. I'm like, okay, I'll put my hand down.
A lot of people always talk about boys and their issues, but what about girls and their issues? We have a lot of issues.
There are some gender-specific challenges facing girls that are all too often left in the shadows. where they do help to undermine their life chances, albeit quietly, without much fuss or fanfare, without media attention, often without congressional hearings, foundation reports, or special commissions. There is, to, I guess, put a point on it, a crisis in the crises frame, namely a widespread silence about girls and women. Now, the silence creates what I think we should call a vicious cycle. Focus on boys leads to research and interventions that do effectively create knowledge and public awareness about the crises that they face. Yet the frame also excludes research on girls, which in turn reinforces the assumption that girls are not in crises because the evidence is comparatively sparse. But the evidence is comparatively sparse because the frame precludes the investigation.
For all of my nonprofit brothers and sisters in the room, the capacity building support is key. I mean, we have great programs. Everyone always says, oh, well, you know, my child was in this great program and they did really well. I just wish more kids could do it. Well, the problem is we fall short whenever we identify great programs, but we not necessarily refuse, but think that, well, just funding it at the current level is going to be sufficient enough.
I love San. Like, I feel like everyone says that when we're talking about San. I've been with her for 4 years, and every day is just like I learn something new all the time. Like, she's definitely like second mom to me. Like, she's been there for me for everything, like personal problems, school problems, work problems. Like, we butt heads all the time at work, but we always like were able to work through it.
When she came here, she spoke no English. She had no shoes. Just growing up very, very poor in Cape Verde. But as she says, very poor, but always very happy. She's a senior at an exam school. You know, that dream that she has that's going to be fulfilled because her work ethic is amazing, and it's going to take her so far. I'm so proud of her. Every day she walks in, I'm proud.
So she's definitely like have prepared me for like real life and a real job and everything. So I have her to thank for a lot.
And first time that I was in his class, I was like, oh my God, I hate this guy. But then he gave us like questions that were like 100 minutes long, and I was like, how do you expect us to finish this in 45 minutes? He's like, trust me. As soon as like you're done with my class, you'll have like the knowledge where you just see the answer and you just write it down. And it really worked. Like now I have other classes that I finished test early because I had Mr. Hines' class. And I still visit him like all the time after school. Like he gets sick of me. Like all the time I say hi and we talk. Like it's not only like, it's like a friendship-based relationship now too. Like I feel like I have a really close connection with him. And like that's somebody I would go back to for like a college recommendation.
You know, what often happens in teaching is you know, there's a lot of kids have a lot of needs, and what I find is that, you know, I try to help as many as possible, and oftentimes I just don't have enough time. You know, so sometimes someone who's not as vocal, you know, may fall through the cracks, and that bothers me sometimes.
My guidance counselor, I always go to her for anything. Like she knows me from like the back of her hand. Like I tell her everything. She went to Poetically Speaking, she was there. She helped me find like a lot of opportunities. Like she helps me with Teen Voice and Citizen Schools that I do as well.
In 10th grade, I had the opportunity to have her in a girls' leadership group. And she was incredible in that group. So she was really well spoken about specifically feminism. Like it kind of blew me away because other students would just learn from her about like, what that meant, you know, like what was wrong with one female kind of going after another female. She would kind of articulate it better than most adults, I think, can do. And she was a 10th grade student, yeah. So I was really very impressed, and I knew that she was involved in Teen Voices, and I thought that maybe that was having an impact on her, you know, and she was taking some really positive things away from it. And she was a joy to have in the group.
Teen Voices really changed my the way I see like society and community as a whole. So like I want to like empower teen girls and like show the negativity that's going on and all that.
My skin is not chocolate, nor is my hair stereotypically African. But you better believe this girl is an African beauty.
I have a mentor, and her name is Shamika. I met her in middle school. She always encourages me to do my best and to keep going and to strive for the highest. So I like that about her. I had this program in my middle school. It was called LIVE. It stood for Loyal, Intelligent, Victorious, and Everlasting.
Oh my goodness, Joy was a dynamo. From the moment I met her, she's very outspoken, always has been since the time I've known her. You know, she'll tell it like it is, you know, and she doesn't apologize for it, and I don't expect her to. So it was just, she was my biggest fan and my biggest critic all at once, because whenever I did anything or she was on it. And she remembered. But it was good for me, you know, it was good for me.
We are loyal, intelligent, victorious, everlasting. Sisters who believe that we are constant work in progress. We know that being successful is difficult, not impossible. We know for our positive attitude, speak in our minds, and hold our heads high at all times. We shall give respect to others and demand it for ourselves, because our duty as individuals and live sisters. How are you?
Life is where I go when I have nowhere else to turn and have people to talk to here. So,
learning to be comfortable with yourself and your surroundings, because last year I was really quiet. Like, you would barely notice that I was in a room, and this year it's like, I don't know. My mom was telling me to shut up all day yesterday, so, and I think it was because I was pushed a lot last year by Shamika to talk and be a part of the group.
Like when I first started here at Dearborn, I always came to school late, and I always got kicked out of class, but it was like,
Why? Jaya has an attitude.
I like to talk a lot, and yeah, my attitude got me in a lot of trouble, but Shamika always told us like sitting in her office wasn't getting us any education or anything, so being in class was better. And we had our problems, and Shamika talked it out with us, but Live got me through Dearborn.
In 7th grade, and I was like, why do I keep going to different schools? I don't like to transfer schools. I don't like to go into a different school. Or when I'm 16, I'm out of this. I'm gonna go work at McDonald's, get free French fries. But like, it's not like that. Like now I've like thought about it. I wanna go to college. I wanna become a lawyer. I wanna make something of my life. And it's because Shamika inspired that. Like she was like, I mean, there's gonna be problems. Sometimes change is better.
Unfortunately, in current times, there's been so much transition of staff from year to year that, you know, you build something, you get a new leader who comes in, you rebuild again, another new leader comes in, and that has kind of hindered the work a little bit.
You know, working especially under Ms. Teresa Soares-Penna and Dr. Blake was just incredible. It's incredible.
A lot of conversations around the achievement of our African American and Latino boys. Because anytime when we show a graph, those last 2 dots there, I can always tell you who they are. And they're usually always African American boys and Latino boys. And you know, I think in somewhere that we've gotten so focused on that, that somewhere along the line, I think that we have not, I don't think that we've overlooked, but that we have not put maybe the as much of equal focus on where our girls are doing. I think that we feel that our girls are doing okay. And sometimes I think we say the girls are doing okay because they're not possibly in the main limelight. When we talk about the level of violence, when we talk about the issues that are happening in schools, girls are not the focal, the focal point of that. That when we look at it, we look at our boys. Now, with us, I think that when we look at our achievement gap goes in 3 categories. One, I think, is race, when we look at it, and then the other is our ELL population, and the other is SPED. So those are our three areas, of the gap. So when we look at race and doing that, I think we are now beginning to look at also in gender, and finding that the boys are here, the girls are a little bit better, but not all that much better. And how do we now begin to say that we can't just focus there? How do we also begin to have a two-pronged focus, that we're focusing on the boys who are bringing it at the bottom, but our girls who are just a few steps ahead.
I've also gone down to do some Senate hearings to try to raise the legal dropout age from 16 to 18. And to also, Senator Sonia Chang Diaz is also, she has a wonderful bill, Senate Bill 185, trying to move forward with putting graduation coaches in every high school, which I think will better assist the social and emotional needs of young people.
The bill that I'm really working passionately on this term, and for as long as it takes into the future, is a dropout prevention and intervention bill. So this I see as the next step, right? We've dealt with education financing as a whole with the Ed Reform Act, then we zeroed in on the achievement gap. And now I want to tackle the dropout issue in Massachusetts, because even if we are turning around our underperforming schools, if we've got kids that aren't even in school, whether it's an underperforming one or a highly performing one, then you're really in a crisis situation for that young person. I mean, we know there's just gobs and gobs of evidence. The earnings differential, the self-sufficiency differential, the likelihood that that young person might end up in the criminal justice system, involved in substance abuse, huge cost for that. There's an economist in the state who talks a lot about this issue, and he puts it in very stark terms that basically for high school, the American dream is dead for a dropout. Certainly statistically, there are challenges that we see affecting more women of color, or I should say girls and girls of color, and different issues that statistically disproportionately affect young men and young men of color. But I also want to stress that none of these groups are monoliths, and that I'm hesitant always to promote a sort of a victim stereotype for women and for women of color.
Being praised when you do something well. Like if you become valedictorian, most people feel like it's always a Caucasian male or female, but whenever it's like an African American, people really praise you more. I feel like that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because we shouldn't have to be just praised because of it's out the ordinary or it's unusual, but it's a good thing because we're finally getting noticed for things besides of what society stereotypes, like how they say we can't do this or we'll never be able to succeed. So I really think as being African American female, I have a lot of advantages and I have the ability to prove people wrong.
And so as I think about what cultural proficiency is, I think basically if we really get to know our students, who they are, what they bring to the table, what they know and what they need, then we approach them and we teach them from a way that builds upon who they are individually from an asset-based approach.
People don't always expect me to be articulate or as smart as I am, but when I do tell people, they're kind of like, wow, I didn't know that, or I don't know. And it feels good when they say that, because I kind of like to be underestimated a little bit, because then it's like people aren't really expecting, they're just not expecting me to be as sharp. So it's like I kind of have the upper hand. So, yeah.
I would say the BPS Valedictorians Luncheon is a really good antidote to that. where you're in there and you see, I think over half of our valedictorians in Boston in recent years were born outside of the United States. I don't know the proportion, but I suspect probably a majority of them are women. And of course those categories overlap. And then there's also women of color who are native born. So there are really, really impressive young women of color in our urban school systems, as well as everywhere else in the state, but women who are just, if you'll forgive my language, kicking ass, and watch out world, for these young women.
What they need to know is that I'm black and I'm proud, and I don't have to act all wild or talk real loud or West Indian gal, born and raised. With style and grace, this pretty face straight to the top, all rise. So just sit back and hear me out and listen if you can while I take the time to show you all just who I really am. I know where I come from, so you don't have to tell me. I can feel the hair on my head. I know my roots in Appy. I know how long and hard my forefathers, fathers, grandfathers fought to put me where I need to be. So why is it that you're sweating me so angrily? Because I don't like my hair, I'm not a true sister, and I don't listen to hip-hop, so I'm not a good listener. I'm tired of people trying to tell me how to be.
I love diversity, so I feel like having different races, ethnicities, different teachers would be great as well.
More African American women who have done a lot in their life. Because now that I think of it, I don't have any teachers of color. They're all white. People don't believe that. I think males in the classroom are really distracting. I would make it an all-girls school.
I would have a live program there for my brothers and sisters, and it would have less violence. And I would just hope that the kids will get along if they can't control their temper. And like Jai said, would have air conditioning in the summertime and heat in the wintertime.
Classes that are focused on different cultures besides the US and Europe. I feel like there are other places such as countries in Africa, countries in South America, Australia, countries in Asia, science and math, and they would also have support if you got pregnant or if you need tutoring.
I would have to have teachers who care, not teachers who are just gonna pass students along to the next grade and be well, they're out of my hands now. I feel like that is one of the biggest things that schools need, teachers who care.
A successful school teaches the kids inside the classroom and outside the classroom, everything that they need in order to be success outside of the school.
The district really needs to look into the social emotional development programs because what they're doing is not working. I'm going to say it one way, what they're doing is not working. You have a leaky faucet and you keep putting tape on and it keeps leaking and you keep putting tape on it.
But it's very expensive tape.
It's very expensive tape, very expensive tape. At what point do you call a plumber? At what point do you call a plumber?
When students feel like they can be themselves and not have to just go through school anonymously and struggle by themselves, or if they have a victory, not have anyone to celebrate it with. I think that they need to feel like they're known.
We'd have decompression blocks or something, chunks of the day where we just talk about what's going on. What's making today hard for you? Is it hard to learn today? Why? What are you being distracted by? What's on your mind? What's in your heart? What boy is driving you crazy? What did your mom say last night that hurt your feelings? When's the last time you seen your dad? I know there was a shooting in your neighborhood last night. Did you know any of the people involved? Did you know somebody who got hurt? Are you feeling sad today? All of these questions that don't get asked typically in the typical school setting.
So we've lost a whole opportunity to create a continuum of leadership I mean, The Voice, the magazine, for Girls in Boston, the program, the chance to have such a positive experience, that's right on the surface. But underneath it this is 25 years of leaders. So these are women who are now in their 40s, who came of age being told that they could change, that they had a voice, that they had power, and that they could use it in a constructive way.
For a little while, I had to process it in, and all the girls around me were like starting to cry and question why it was happening, and that's when it really started to sink in, because that the program was closing. And the first thing I did was I started crying. I started crying because this place means a lot to me, and I really couldn't believe that it was coming to an end, especially this way.
And then the college was over, she called me downstairs to a meeting, and the one place that I felt where I'd be comfortable and I'd always be able to come back, and she told me that Teen Voice was closing down, I was mad. I have never been so mad in my life. For all of that to happen to me in the morning, to know that the one place that I always come to get away from my life, I can't come to anymore, it really angered me. It really made me feel like there's no other option, no other way out. So I just felt really let down by the board.
The sadness I feel for the end of Teen Voices is the sadness that comes from the fear of the world not having enough choices like Teen Voices. Little utopias in the midst of this world run by adults who have forgotten how to be curious and honest. It's easy to find fake smiles and fake curiosity, but it's extraordinarily rare to find a girl who will tell you how Muslim teens like to party, or how being a Houdian is a lot easier than being a teen with Asperger's. Yesterday in our closing circle, I heard a girl say she believes the world would be a better place if everyone just had one saw Teen Voices. Obviously, this is impossible, nor is it possible for any girl to have this opportunity here anymore.
I think I want them to know that there are adults out there that care for them and that will fight for them and advocate for them, and that they don't have to go through things alone, and that there's someone who will listen and someone who will advise them and kind of go through the fire with them when they need it, you know.
largely talking about is an empathy gap. It's frankly making people, actually care about it, and that's some of what that's some of the intentional stuff that we want to put in the District 16 is actually, it's not at a particular individual, but about what folks should care about. And frankly, it's got to start with the residents of each community. They have to be the first to care. Then after that, that's when you push your elected officials to care.